So good thing is I won't have to spend any time on the pleasantries of introducing myself on this presentation because it's the same guy who did the previous one. So you already know about him. And that's why I see not everybody came back. So that's all right. Like I said, the important people are here. So in this presentation, I'm going to pick up where the last one left off. So this one's going to pick right up where we left off, the exact same images. I just booted up 3 future client images, 3 client operating system images that will turn into clients, and we're going to pick up there. So last presentation was getting your site prepared for clients. Now this one is, let's go ahead and get the clients deployed. And I'm going to show you client deployment through numerous different methods. The first thing we're going to start off with is an overview of client deployment because there's some things in there that are pretty important that I think you need to understand. So I'm going to talk about some of the binaries that are used and some of the code that's installed there, and then the assignment and the registration and the client approval process. I'm going to talk about those for a minute each. Then I'm going to real quickly go through the site system roles that are used in client deployment, just to highlight those for you. And then we'll look at client deployment through 4 different methods. Client push, and then 2 new ones, software update point client installs, group policy client installs, and then lastly just upgrading your clients from whatever you have today to the current product. Okay, so here's our supported client platforms. We support nothing less than Windows 2000 Professional Server SP4. So we don't support anything less than SP4. We don't support, if you look at Windows XP, we don't support Windows XP SP1 or RTM. So it's XP, SP2, and SP3. Windows Server 2003 SP1, SP2, R2. The Vista editions that are business editions, not home editions. And then including RTM and SP1. Windows Server 2008 is supported. It was supported in RTM as well. Not when RTM came out because we came out way before Windows Server 2008 was, but we announced support a few months ago for it. However, one key thing is no server core supported as a client in the RTM version of Configuration Manager. We do support server core as a client in our Service Pack 1 release. Again, no site system role support for server core, but client support, yes, as of SP1. Tablet XP SP2, and embedded XP SP2, and I guess embedded just released or is going to release any day now a brand new version as well. We'll be supporting that. WePause and Windows Foundation for legacy platforms. And that doesn't cover any of the mobile stuff either. So mobiles like Windows Mobile, Pocket PC 2003 and later. Up through including Windows Mobile 6.1 we announced support for in the last month or so. So Windows Mobile 6.1 devices.
Can server core be a branch distribution point?
Can server core be a branch DP? Server core should be able to be a branch DP, yes. Yes. Now, the one caveat there might be, is there, and I'll show you this on the slide coming up here shortly, if there's an RDC component for Windows Server Core. If there's no RDC component for Windows Server Core, then it can't be, because we require RDC, and that's why we can't make a branch DP on a Windows 2000 box. So I don't know if there's a Server Core Windows Remote Differential Compression component. If so, then yes. If not, then no. So I don't know. I was thinking yes until I remembered that part. So remind me later on. I'll write it down somewhere and I'll find out. Probably won't be able to find out today though. So issues that you guys have today with SMS 2003 client deployment. And we fix all these issues for you obviously in Configuration Manager, otherwise I'm going to bring them up now. Client push issues. You had problems with the firewall. So for client push, you have problems with the firewall where you have to have things opened up in your firewalls for Vista and XP, SP2, and anything else with firewalls on them. Because firewalls enabled by default, and file sharing is disabled, or RPC ports are disabled, and so on. So those are some issues. You need to provision an admin account. I have to have an admin account in Configuration Manager or in SMS 2003 that is an admin on that remote box. So I have to have some account that I can use as a remote admin. There's multiple different binaries to be installed, or that you could use to install clients in SMS 2003. CCM setup, client.msi, cap.inst. All those guys might do something different and have different requirements depending upon which one of those utilities you launched off, and then how did they interoperate with each other? Or how did you troubleshoot them when things failed? In fact, no visibility of the process. So did my client work or not? The way you knew or had an idea whether it worked or not is you went to the admin console, updated your collection membership, and did the client change from no to yes? That was your indication that it installed. But it really may have installed and just couldn't communicate with the site. So you didn't know if the client install failure happened or whether there's a communication problem after the fact. So troubleshooting client installs in SMS 2003 got into looking at a whole bunch of log files. You had no idea what was successful and what was unsuccessful until you did that. Client was not bandwidth aware. So if you did a client install over a WAN link, guess what? We were pushing a whole bunch of stuff over the WAN link and we were chewing up all the bandwidth at that point in time. So we'll talk about how those get fixed momentarily. So client deployment methods, different ways of installing clients in Configuration Manager. So the first couple are the exact same as you have in SMS 2003. Client push, in essence, is the same. Whether it's the automated client push install or whether it's the admin controlled client push installation wizard. That's all pretty much the same. One change is that you can now use the site server computer account as your client push installation account. So if you haven't defined a client push installation account, we'll automatically try the site server computer account to see if it's a local admin on that target client, target potential client. It still has to be an admin for a client push, but we'll try it. So if it's been added to the, let's say, domain admins group, so it's a local admin on all the boxes, then great, you can use that account. And you wouldn't have to specify individually any accounts there. Logon rights for logon installation for high rights users. So you can just manually run CCM setup in a logon script, provided that your logged on user is a local admin. We no longer have the ability for a non-admin user or low rights user to initiate client installation in Configuration Manager. If I'm launching it off myself, I have to be an admin. So you have to be an admin to kick off an install of Configuration Manager. Now, I'll tell you a couple ways of getting around that coming up. We don't provide any logon scripts for this, and your logon process would be CCM setup. Software distribution to upgrade from SMS 2003 to Configuration Manager or upgrade to the SP1 versions of Configuration Manager. The most popular way people use for upgrading clients is software distribution. Manual install, I just walk up to a box, type in CCM setup, and let it run. Now, a couple that are brand new that people are really excited about. First one is the ability of installing my client through WSUS. So I have a WSUS infrastructure already set up. My clients are already WSUS clients. I publish the Configuration Manager Client Bootstrapper as a mandatory application update that's automatically approved in WSUS. Next time the client scans WSUS for updates, bingo. It says, hey, here's an update. It's approved for me. It's required for me. Not installed. Kicks off our Bootstrapper, which is CCM setup. And it becomes a client at the end of that process. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you coming up. Very, very slick. Group policy installation. We kind of had group policy installs in SMS 2003, but we didn't really have group policy installs. You could do client.msi as a group policy, however, couldn't put any command line switches after it. So they were clients that weren't assigned to any site. And so you could then do an administrative install of client.msi and extracted everything out, and you could bundle it up with your client install parameters like SMS site code equals MCM or whatever, and then deploy it. However, if you then remove that group policy, it removed your client, because what it was removing was client.msi, which is your client installer itself. So we now have a brand new installer, which is ccmsetup.msi, that you advertise it as a group policy object, and bingo, once it runs that group policy, you should be a client, provided you didn't screw things up. And I'll demonstrate that for you as well. You can use whatever method or methods work in your environment that you need to use. So if you have group policy or AD-based clients, you may want to use a group policy install. If you don't have everybody in AD, you may not be able to use the WSUS environment, so you may have to use the client push process. So use multiple of them, use all of them, it doesn't matter. Use whatever works for you. So supported client numbers, our client numbers haven't changed at all from SMS 2003. We still support 200,000 clients in a hierarchy up to 100,000 clients per primary site. So if you need more than 100,000 clients, it's a hierarchy, so multiple sites. If you need more than 200,000 clients, unfortunately today it's multiple hierarchies. We don't support anything beyond 200,000. Now, if you're a really large customer, won't name any names, But if you're a really large customer, you can get special dispensation from the product group to say, okay, we may support you to 250,000 clients, provided you have some of these things set this way. But for the most part, 200,000 is it. Management point is still 25,000 per. So if you need 100,000 clients, like here, it's 4 MPs and then an LB cluster. Distribution points, we give you a little bit of numbers here. However, it's really those it depends things. Limited by your network and your disk I/O. What are you pushing out? So what are you pushing? How long is it going to take to download it? How much bandwidth you have available? So what your network is? What's the disk I/O? Because it's all disk traffic based off of your distribution point. It's all just file copies. So they state 4,000 here. The general recommendation I use is once you get to 1,000 clients that might be hit in your site, then look at another distribution point. Sometimes I've had people be able to get 5,000 clients per DP on an average, and it works great for them. Other people, depending on what they're doing, again, it might be 1,000 clients. So he's saying 4,000 here. I usually say it be 1,000 and 1,500 is the number I usually recommend to people to start looking at things. State migration point, just like an MP, because you're just pulling content from a state migration point. Remember, it's that user state you backed up. And you backed up there, you're going to restore someplace else. So it just depends on the network and the disk I/O. Soft WSUS, 25,000 clients per WSUS box. So if you need 100,000 for your higher site, then it's 4 of these guys in an LB cluster. Fallback status point, 100,000 clients. And then branch DP, primarily it's going to be limited by your OS license. If you put a branch DP on a workstation OS, then you get 10 clients, because your workstation OSs are limited to 10 SMB connections at a time. And branch DPs only provide content over SMB. Branch DPs do not provide content over bits. So you'd be limited there. Plus, obviously, your network and disk may be slower. Okay. Oh, somebody told me something during the break I was supposed to tell you guys. Yes. In an upgrade scenario, if you are upgrading from SMS 2003 to Configuration Manager, assume that for the exact same hardware, with the exact same capabilities, you may not be able to support as many clients as efficiently. Our code's bigger because we have more capabilities in it now, so more processes, more things happening, even if you're not utilizing some features, so it may consume more resources than it did in SMS 2003. So just be aware of that fact. As a general rule, just assume the fact that I need either better hardware for Configuration Manager, or I have to separate my roles to multiple boxes, or I get fewer clients supported with the same level of performance I had before, or same number of clients with maybe less performance. So, okay, components used in the client deployment process. These are those components, some of them that we downloaded. Remember that client deployment folder that had SMS, CCM, SCCM downloaded client files, or whatever it was called? These are some of those files. So CCM setup is our installer. For almost every single setup you have, it winds up being CCM setup gets launched. That does installs, also uninstall. There's no more CCM clean tool like you had in SMS 2003. To uninstall a client, it's now CCM setup / uninstall. It installs a client. But only for Configuration Manager clients, not for SMS 2003 clients. And then upgrade. That'll upgrade a client from whatever you have to the current version. It is bandwidth aware. So the installation is bandwidth aware, not necessarily because CCM setup is bandwidth aware, but because the first thing CCM setup does is download bits. We download and install bits, and we use bits to download those components in the next couple of slides I'm going to show you. So we actually use bits to download the components from the MP down to our client, so you have whatever bits throttling factors you have there. Whether it's bits 2.0, bits 2.5, or bits 3.0 for Vista and Windows Server boxes. So if your client doesn't already have the required version of bits on it, we are going to install that version of bits for you immediately in the client deployment process. And we're going to see that in my demos coming up here, because I have bare bones clients that we're going to deploy to. Once we have, go ahead. You are going to see that in the demo. I'm going to do a client push of Windows 2000, and with Windows 2000, Bits 2.0 install requires a restart before Bits is active. So when I do my push to my Windows 2000 client, my client deployment failure report is going to list the Windows 2000 client. Because it's a failure, it didn't install successfully. And as soon as I reboot my client, we pick up where we left off, which means we're now going to then start installing this stuff down here. and it'll pick up where it left off, complete our install. The client will move from the failure report over to the success report, provided it is successful, which it should be in my case. So Windows Installer 3.1 version 2, and that's the KB article for it. We install it, if it's not already there. Windows Update Agent 3.0, and then with the SP1 version, when we're using SP1 and WSUS, we have the agent there as well. So we'll install it, if it's not already there. Core XML 6.0 Service Pack 1, so MS XML 6 MSI. So we download and install each of these if not already there, and it's appropriate. And then RDC components. So this is the remote differential compression components. These are required for branch DPs. Because in Configuration Manager, not only we have delta replication, we also now have binary delta replication. So the ability of not replicating the entire file that's changed, just replicating the bits in the file that changed. And so what we did is we had the OS team backport the RDC component from Windows Server 2003 R2 into Windows XP, Windows Server 2003 SP1, Vista type components. So we have those for those operating systems. So back to the question of server core for Windows Server 2008. If there's one of these, then yes, it could be a branch DP. And I don't remember if there's if server core has this built in. I don't think we have one. So unless the Windows Server 2003 version installed on server core, then it would probably not be. And there isn't one for Windows 2000. That's why you can't make a Windows 2000 box a branch DP. Because there's no RDC components. So you couldn't do remote differential compression or binary delta replication, as we call it. WMGAPI API for image management and image working. And then client.msi, which is the Windows installer package for the client itself. So all these components get downloaded by bits once bits installed and active on your box. So it's a lot of different things that happen. You can see these all in the CCM setup log file. So you see all these components. Okay, once the client's installed, then the next thing it has to do is get assigned to the site. You're probably doing your assignment in your command line, SMS site code equals, and then specifying a command line, or specifying a site code, like MCM is what I'll use. I think I installed that site with MCM. So we'll use that. But we have to validate that is MCM a configuration manager site. In other words, can I assign this client to site MCM? We just don't blindly do that. In SMS 2003, you could do that. You could go to a client. You could type in any 3 characters you wanted to, click OK in that advanced tab of the client properties, and we would accept it. It may not be a valid site, but we would accept it, and bingo, we would try and find the default MP for that site. That will not work with Configuration Manager. When you type in a site code on that client tab, or on the advanced tab of the client properties, we validate that those 3 characters you typed are actually a Configuration Manager site. If not, we don't accept the site code. We tell you client is unassigned. Or site assignment was unsuccessful, I think is what we actually say. The only 2 ways we do this are from Active Directory scheme extensions, which means the v4 version of Active Directory scheme extensions, or you have to have a Configuration Manager server locator point in your site, and your clients have to know to use it. By default, clients don't know about any SLPs. They find out about SLPs through AD, but if they can find them in AD, then your scheme has been extended likely. And if not, then on command line parameter. Now they can find them in WINS as well, but by default we don't register in WINS or DNS. So you'd have to tell us to register in WINS or DNS. So the easiest way is a command line switch I'll show you to make sure that you are utilizing the SLP. So that has to happen next. So I install my client, then I have to validate that my site is a v4 site. And actually, if you look at the site capabilities blob in the AD, it actually says v4 as the site version. Once the client's been assigned, then it has to go through a registration process. This registration process is where the client gives its ID to Configuration Manager to add to the database. So this is where we go ahead and validate take that self-signed certificate from the client and add it to our database so that later on we can validate that client is who client says he is when he tries to send us data to add to the database later on. So that's a one-time process. We try this right at this point in time. We'll retry it if it fails, but if you were to happen to stop it or anything like that, it entirely fails, we stop trying, we don't try it again. So it happens right after client install and then client assignment process. Hit all that. Okay. So I'll show you that process happening as well. Then lastly is client approval. Client approval is a mixed mode thing only, not a native mode thing. And what client approval is to allow you to utilize the network access account for that site. So if you don't have to use the network access account, like all my clients are in the same AD forest, I don't have any workgroup-based clients, nothing in remote domains and so on, then I should be able to use my computer account to access my distribution points. In that case, I wouldn't need the network access account, unless I was doing OSD. Because in OSD, you're running WinPE, and in WinPE, you're not domain joined, so no AD context, and you're running into a local system context, so I can't use my logged on user because there isn't one. So there you have to use the network access account. But there, you're not even a client, so there's no approval process. But that's the other place you need the network access account. There's 3 different options here for approval. I'll show you in 1 second. The default is automatically approve all domain joined clients. Or you can say, don't approve anybody automatically. I, as the admin, have to do the approval process. And then lastly is approve everybody. I don't care. I trust everybody in my environment. So let me show you that real quick. Here we go, site server. So this is the same site server we used. Oops. I guess I touched my mouse. Same site server we were using before. I didn't change anything at all. Just booted up some other images. So there's our 2 boundaries we added. So you go to your site properties. Move that down in the middle a little bit, easier to see. Notice there is a Wake on LAN tab. We do support Wake on LAN with the product, provided that your hardware supports it. So we do support that. We do support port changing, I talked about before. See Wake on LAN port as well. And then the Advanced tab. This is where you can go ahead and specify to publish an AD. So if your schema wasn't extended when you installed your site, we disabled this checkbox, so we're not publishing there, generating errors like we used to in SMS 2003. You then extend your schema, you have to go select a checkbox. If you want us to publish in DNS, you can go select a checkbox. Then clients can find resources in DNS outside of just WIMS or AD. But site mode is the one we're talking about here. So site mode, the first thing is you can switch from mixed mode to native mode here. Just change my little drop down there from mixed to native. And now this changes to give me my native mode parameters, which I have to have my certificate and then specify whether I want a certificate for OSD and then CRL checking and then HTTP fallback stuff. So for us, you notice there's no client approval there. For mixed mode, client approval is automatically for all domain joined clients. So all clients in my same forest, basically. Bottom one is automatically approve everybody. We don't recommend that. Top one, you can do that, manually approve, but it's you as an admin, you have to go in there and approve those clients. Now, how you approve them in your site is purely, checkbox before I move there, checkbox down here. This site contains only SMS or Configuration Manager 2007 clients. If you have an environment where your site has SMS 2003 clients assigned to it, you need to remove that checkbox. If you don't, your SMS 2003 clients don't have the network access account. And the SMS 2003 network access account is not valid anymore in Configuration Manager. So you need our network access account for Configuration Manager, so you need to remove the checkbox so you don't get it. And here's how you encrypt data before it goes to the MP, like I mentioned before. So I was going to show you something. What was it? Oh, approval. So how you'd approve a client, and I don't have any, but just show you what it would be. Go to a collection like all systems. And I have a single member of my all systems collection, which would be my site server computer. That's automatic discovery, that WinNT server discovery agent process. Retrieving actions, when you see that, that's trying to figure out what to populate this actions pane with based on the resource pane and the tree pane objects. So you see we now have resource actions for the tree pane, all systems, and then when I select this box, we now will have actions for that individual computer. So I would take that individual computer and I would do an approve process on it. Now, I don't have an approval option here because it's not a client. But as you see the next to last column, you see approved NA. NA, not applicable. It's not applicable to approve non-clients. It's not applicable to approve native mode clients. It's not applicable to approve SMS 2003 clients. So it's only configuration manager based mixed mode clients are the only thing you have to approve. But there would be an approval action right here. So I'd select the client where it says approved equals not approved, and I would just click the approve button, and it changes that. Big downside is you can't do this centrally. You have to do this at the site where the client is assigned. So you as a central admin, you can't approve your child site clients unless you want to connect up to their database and then do the approval that way. So it's a pain in the patootie, as some people would say. But they may not say it here, but we'd say it in the States. Or at least I would say it in the States. Maybe nobody else would. But if you hadn't heard that before, you learned something new. Worth the price of admission. Alrighty, so that's the components involved. Now, site systems involved, we'll go through this very quickly. Site server, if you're doing a client push. That's done from the site server. Management point is used to download the client files. All those 80-some files I talked about before, those come from the MP. And then obviously once you're assigned, that's where the client sends the registration request to, and that's where they download policies once they get registered. Server locator point, if your site is not publishing to AD, or if the scheme is not extended for configuration manager, then you have to have a server locator point to validate the site assignment stuff. Distribution point, including branch DPs, will be for software distribution upgrades or OSD scenarios. In configuration manager, we actually recommend that you don't have the client in your base image. So when you capture your reference system, there's no client in that image. If you do have the client, it has to be the configuration manager client. Configuration manager OSD will not capture an image that has the SMS 2003 client installed. We'll only capture non-clients or one with a V4 client in it.
Doing light touch deployment using MDT, do you put the config manager client in the image, or do you recommend not to put it?
So the question is, if you do a light touch with MDT, do you put the client in the image or not? And I have no idea. I can't even spell MDT. So I know nothing about it. It's not our product.
If you image in your OS and you put in the config manager client,
right.
SMS 2003, you have the CCM delta as a step before sysprep?
Then if the client is there, we will depersonalize the client. So we will remove the GUID.
Is that part of sysprep?
That's part of our process, yes. We do that. I don't remember if sysprep does it or if it's done by us prior to sysprep.
Is that part of the SCCM OSD?
Yes. Our process will take care of depersonalizing the client in the image.
But if you're doing it
Outside of configuration manager, then you either shouldn't have the image, client in the image, or you need to manually remove that certificate with the CCM Del Cert utility from the SMS 2003 toolkit.
Does that still work on?
It still works. Yeah.
I would have thought the way to do it is just to do the build and then run the command test and install the client.
Correct. That's why I said we recommend you don't have the client in the image. And then we have a task in our OSD process for installing an image. We have basically a mandatory task, which is install the configuration manager client as part of our imaging. Yeah. Software update point, that'll be for the software update point client install. So installing your client through WSUS, I'll show you that. Fallback status point. Really highly recommended you have a fallback status point so you get these client deployment status reports. And I'll show you what those look like here in my demonstrations coming up. But highly, highly recommended. Pixie service point, if you want to do bare metal client deployments, you have a Pixie service point. State migration point, if I'm migrating from old hardware to new hardware, it's going to install a new client, obviously, and I want to migrate my state over, the Pixie service point. Okay, just pictorially, that's what they look like, because you saw this other type of graph, just filtered down to those that are involved in deployments. So, I didn't install a fallback status point, so let me talk about the fallback status point and show you what that looks like. So I'm going to put, unlike our product group recommendation, to cut down on my VPC images, I'm going to put the fallback status point on my site server. Not recommended. Remember, uncontrolled traffic or unsecure traffic. But I'm going to put it here just to cut down my images so I have more memory for clients that I want to generate. So I'll take the FSP role. Very simple configuration. When clients send deployment state messages to the FSP, they're going to batch up on the FSP. Every 3,600 seconds, I'm going to take this number of FSP state messages and forward them up to the site server. So every hour, I'm going to forward up to 10,000 state messages up to the site server. We recommend you to leave this at hourly. I'm going to change this in my environment because I'm doing a demo environment, and I only have a total of 4 computers, so 3 clients I'm going to have. I'm not going to take the time on the site server. So I'm going to change this so we get faster processing of our state messages. However, in production, we do not recommend you drop this down to 120 seconds, like I'm stating, because you could overload your site server with deployment state messages. If you try and deploy 10,000 clients all at one time, each client generates somewhere between 6 and 8 state messages, depends on your configuration. So that's a whole bunch of state messages to have your site server process. Plus, you probably already have your software update point synchronized. So when the client gets installed, guess what? One of the first things it's going to do is scanning for software updates. We send a state message per software update. If you have an environment with 10,000 software update in your catalog, that's another 10,000 state message per client. So you could easily backlog your site server with state messages. So leave it hourly so that you spread out that load. Most of the time you deploy clients overnight anyway. So you don't care if the messages aren't in your database in an hour. As long as they're there the next morning, you'll be in good shape and you can do your reporting. Okay, so that's all there is for configuration of a fallback status point. Again, this just says I'm creating the site control file to image to go ahead and do so. And then we're going to go ahead and kick off the installation process. Where we actually put our state messages for clients, since I'm a shared management point, we actually utilize some of the management point components, so it'll look like a management point on all your FSPs. So it's going to go in the SMS_CCM folder, and we'll create a new folder here called FSP staging. So we'll create a brand new folder here called FSP staging, and that's where state messages will come from clients. They'll get staged here for whatever your time period is, then they get pushed up to the site server from the fallback, there it is, from the fallback status point. These state messages are only used for client deployment, and on a daily basis, each client, if it knows to use an FSP, will send basically a heartbeat saying, I was able to talk to my MP today, or I was not able to talk to my MP today. So kind of a ping validation that they can talk to the MP. Those are the only state messages go here. Your software update state messages, your desired configuration management state messages, those go to the management point directly. Okay, so, and I'll show you how we use an FSP here momentarily when I kick into my client installs. Okay, which I'm going to do right now. Oh, here it is. So I'm going to go to the first client deployment method, which is client push. You guys are really familiar with it. I just want to show a couple things here. Essentially the same as SMS 2003. We changed the default for SMS site code. It used to be auto, A-U-T-O. It's now your local site code. So it's now your default for your client push is SMS site code equals, in my case, MCM. And I assume the reason we did that is, let's say my laptop is a configuration manager client. And let's say we just upgraded today to the SP1 version of configuration manager. And my admin pushes out to my client to upgrade to configuration manager, Service Pack 1. Well, I'm sitting here in Reading, and if we leave the default of SMS site code equals auto, I would get reassigned to the Reading site as opposed to the Redmond site where my client really belongs. Because it would do an auto discovery of what site it belongs to based on its current location. So now by putting SMS site code equals RED for Redmond, I'm always going to be assigned to my local site, my proper site. And then again, we already mentioned this before, the site server computer account can be used as a client push account if all other accounts fail, and it is a local admin. We no longer use the remote registry service, so we don't use remote registry to access now, we use remote WMI. So through your firewall, if you're doing client push, remote WMI has to be enabled. And the way I do that is through a net shell command. Net shell, firewall, set service, remote admin, enable. Just run that command line, it opens things up for you. One very cool thing is, if you extend your Active Directory schema for Configuration Manager, all of the command line parameters you specify in the Client tab of Client Push Installation Properties get published to Active Directory. That means any other client install you do, if you just run CCM setup with no command line parameters, will go to AD and read those parameters. That saves you from having your admins, each individual admin, Cliff and Rob and Wally, typing in the parameters incorrectly. And so all three of our clients get set up a little bit differently. Just type in CCM setup with nothing, it goes to AD, finds the parameters I dictated I wanted done, and it's going to use those parameters. Which is great for software update point installs because there's no parameters there. Great for group policy installs. Remember, no parameters with group policy. It finds them from AD. So very, very cool process.
And is that the same for right-click as well?
That would use your right-click from a client, yes. It actually doesn't use them from AD because client push uses the client push properties themselves. So, but it's the same parameters, but it just doesn't go to AD and read them. But it's going to use the exact same parameters, yes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got a Windows 2000 client here. One of these little things sitting out here. So first thing we have to do is prepare some site server stuff. So if we go back to our admin console, I've got my FSP installed now. You can see the fallback status point role is enabled. Go to my client installation parameters, client installation methods, and we'll look at the software update point client installation here momentarily. Go to client push installation. Go to full screen mode so you can see better. Maybe. Maybe we won't go to full screen mode so you can see better. You can see big black box better than you did before. Okay. Personally, I never turn on client push, automated client push. I'm not a fan of it. If you want to use it, I have a lot of customers that use it, and it works great for them. I don't like it because I have no control over when my systems become clients. As soon as I run AD Discovery, they're assigned my site, and they're a supported OS, they become a client. And there may be other things going on. It may be over some WAN link. And it doesn't care about fast versus slow boundaries. It's going to go ahead and push. So I don't use it myself. Accounts, you'd have to have an account unless your site server computer account is a local admin. So I would go in here and say SMS domain, client install. My password is password. It's secret. You guys don't know what it is. Now, we don't magically create that account, so you have to go create that account in your domain for you. I don't remember if I have it in here or not. Yeah, I do. Just make sure it's client install, not client push. I change sometimes. Client push. So client push instead of client install. There we go. We are not validating anything here. You have to validate this on your own. I lied. We are validating that you type the same password twice. But we're not validating you type the correct password twice. So that's what we are validating. So you're on your own for this. Maybe someday in the future we'll be having a browse button here and we'll do some validation. However, this is not the future. So this is what we have. And you can put as many of these as you want to. You notice here in the text, pretty hard to read, it says, it will always try using the site server's computer account last if one or more of the accounts listed, or the site server's computer account if no accounts are listed. So we do designate there. Now, here's my client push properties. Remember that used to be SMS site code equals auto. It's now the site code. If I want to use an FSP, I type in FSP equals SMS server. Technically, you don't have to do this for client push, because for client push, we automatically put this parameter in your mobile client.tcf file. However, remember we published these to AD, so that's why I'm specifying it here. If you need an SLP, you would think it'd be something like simple like SLP equals SMS server. However, it's not. It's SMS SLP equals, just for consistency's sake. So any of those command line parameters you want to put out there that you support, you can go and put them here. We'll then publish these to Active Directory. Now again, the SLP, I don't need the SLP in my case because I am extended the schema. It is extended, and I am publishing successfully. I guess maybe we should validate that I'm publishing successfully. And go to the system management container, and there's my MP, and there's my site object. So I am publishing successfully. So I technically don't need the SMS SLP equals. However, it doesn't hurt anything to list it there if you have an SLP, because clients will use it only if they need to.
Yeah. Just a quick question. Are all the other command line switches the same as 2003, or are there any been taken away?
I'm not aware of any that have been taken away. We've added a ton of new ones, like native mode and CRL checking and HTTP fallback and a bunch of other stuff. But I can't think of anything that we took away from SMS 2003. So all I want to do is specify the FSP. I do that. This is now going to publish into Active Directory automatically. So I'll have that. Now, to do a push, you have to do discovery. Oops. So I'm going to go ahead and initiate a discovery. You don't have to do discovery for any of the client installation methods. But I'm going to go ahead and do an AD system discovery. And hopefully you guys have higher performing computers that you're doing your administrative work on than my laptop here. Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of hourglasses. And I'm going to go to local domain. I'm going to go to the root of the domain. And I'm going to go ahead and say, I want you to poll right now. If you haven't seen before, you have Active Directory attributes. So these are the attributes we're going to discover by default. You can add in your own attributes from AD that you want to discover, like a location code or manager or cost center or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. For those of you who like log files, which may just be me, but since I'm in charge, we're looking at a log file. DDM is how you validate when systems discovery records got processed. One thing I don't like, you can see 80 system discovery ran now, is that if I go open up my log file, and I try not to show a lot of log files here, because a lot of people don't like to see them, but look down at the bottom here, it says assigning to site MCM, assigning to site MCM 3 times. It didn't tell me who it is. For whatever real reason, we thought it was more brilliant for us to not tell you what computer we're assigning to site MCM than tell you the computer we're assigning to MCM. So you can turn that back on if you wish. It's a registry parameter. You can go in there and turn on verbose logging for the Discovery Data Manager thread. You do that, and then it will tell you the computer name. It looks just like SMS 2003 logging. I fought, and obviously I lost, because we're not publishing this by default. And I still don't understand the reason why. They told me the reason why. I don't understand it. So doesn't make any sense to me. All right, so I've done discovery. Again, this is the only method you have to do discovery for, and do update collection membership, because it happens by default at 4 a.m., and we're not going to wait around, although it was only 5 hours ago for me, because my clock says it's almost 9 a.m. And then we do an update, and then a refresh. And now we'll have our Windows 2000 client, which in my case, you see all my systems are assigned, which means they fall within the boundaries that I have defined. If I didn't have any boundaries, it'd all say assigned equals no. SMS client 2 is my Windows 2000 box. I'm going to go ahead and take him. Ooh, before I do that. Really important thing here, guys. And when I say guys, I include ladies too, not trying to exclude anybody. Looky down here under SMS client 2, there's an install client. That's what I want to do. But looky up here, under all systems, there's an install client. That's not what I want to do. And it's not too bad for me, because I only have 4 computers. But you guys have a few more than 4 computers in your all systems collection. So be very careful you don't collect that one.
What was the decision behind allowing you to have those contextual menus on the right-hand side?
The reason is because there are times that you do want to do things to the all systems collection. What I would do, however, and I won't tell you the TAP customer name, but I had one of my TAP customers who, when they upgraded to the RC1 version of Configuration Manager, his first call to me was, hey, Wally, you guys upgraded a whole lot more things now than you used to, right? I said, no. And he said, yeah, we got an extra 6,000 clients when we upgraded to RC1. I said, I don't think so. And wound up having him look at audit status messages. I said, I'm sure one of your guys did this. They had to have selected install client on the all systems or one other collection. And he went and looked at his status messages, and somebody did do that. But he was thinking that we just automatically install clients now. I said, no, we don't do that. But that's a really bad thing. Plus, there's a delete here. If I wanted to delete SMS client 2, probably don't want to hit that delete. That removes the all system collection. There. So what you would want to do is you can collapse this menu. So you can collapse that so the tree pane actions are disabled from the menu, and you just have the resource pane actions. Or you could always go over to just use the action menu. You can use that. Or you can right-click on your resource. In fact, some people actually turn off the actions pane entirely because they have been experienced something before. So they have learned. And they turn. Yes, it's a great way of re-imaging all your boxes at one time. Yes. Not that any of us have any experience in that environment. So I personally like the actions pane. I don't even mind the all systems action pane. So I just have no to click the one down here. So anyway, that's what I was going to do. I'm going to click install client. The wizard is a little bit different than what you saw before, just because we don't have legacy clients anymore. So see, it's silent. It's a silent wizard. So it's a lot different than what you saw before. There we go. And I don't have to include domain control. It's not a DC. By default, only clients in the boundary, which it is assigned, so it's fine. And then install or repair upgrade, that's for an upgrade scenario, which in my case, I don't have to select it. You do get the little confirmation here. Here's what you told me you wanted to do. So there I can see all systems as opposed to a computer name. But nobody reads the summary page, I know. So, and you click Finish. Now we go over to our Windows 2000 box, which is this guy right here. We bring up Task Manager. It ranks right behind Notepad in terms of usefulness. And then if I go down here, if I can get there in time, there you see third from the bottom. So right at the top is CCM setup above my highlight, and third from the bottom, this is Windows 2000-KB8, which is a little bit longer than that, but it's the shortened version of the BITS 2.0 installer for English. So it's the English install of BITS 2000, or BITS 2.0 for Windows 2000. When this goes away, which should happen momentarily, CCM setup is going to go away. My CCM setup log file says reboot is required. My client will have generated a state message over to my FSP, over in this here folder right there. It'll generate a state message, which is a failure. And it will say, I've got a failure. This client, SMS client 2, failed to install. You would have never known that in SMS 2003. You'd have to go look at log files or update stuff. I wasn't hoping it wasn't going to take this long to do this. It's a lousy demo here having to wait, so maybe we'll just let this go. Maybe we'll just let this guy process and come back here. Oh, there it goes. Okay. BITS 2.0 is installed now. So here, any second now, CCM setup's going to go away, and then I will have a state message sitting right there. The state message will have to be processed, which can take up to 2 minutes with my timing. In your real world, hourly, because you guys aren't going to drop it down to 2 minutes. And then we'll run the report. The set of reports that you get are in the reporting node. So go down to reporting, then reports. They're all in the go back here, and now they're all going to be client deployment reports. So all these reports that start with in the SMS site for client status, for client information, client weekly, client assignment detailed reports down through client deployment success report. Those 7 reports are only useful if you have a fallback status point and your clients are publishing data to the fallback status point. Otherwise, you're going to get nothing from these reports. They'll be the no data was available to be displayed, or whatever that text is. So let's see how my client is. It may have already processed the FSP message. I would assume so, because it's CCM setup's dead. So I'm going to go ahead and restart the client. And there's nothing in the FSP staging folder, so unless I type something in wrong, so hopefully it processed. We'll go back here and we'll run the client deployment status details report. This is the first time I'm running a report, so I have to specify a reporting point. And this report will give us a summary of all the client deployments that we have information for as of this point in time. And come on. I know you can do it. You just got to, if I had my own dark blue marker, I'd just paint it myself. So it tells me I have 1 computer with status, none successful, 1 failed, and so my failure rate is 100%. I was at one of my TAP customers, and we deployed about 3,500 clients in a single day. And this report was fabulous. It told us about, I think it was 3,847. But of those clients, we had 47 failures. Now, it doesn't tell you who they are. There's no drill through here. But this report just tells you what your status was. So we had whatever it was, 99.82% success, and then whatever the rest was is failures. So we went over to the next report, which is the failure report, or a couple previous. So let me see the failure. So who did fail? And then it tells us, client assignment. That's good. I'm on client deployment, not client assignment. My bad. Client deployment failure report. Try that one. Otherwise, you get those reports like that if you don't have an FSP. So it tells me the computer name and tells me a reboot is required to continue the installation. So it told us for those 47 clients exactly why they failed. 37 were Windows 2000 clients, so we knew what it was. The other 10 were couldn't contact the MP or couldn't verify some file was MS signed. So those were the other 10 failures that we had. So very, very easy to know which computers failed and what the reason for the failure was, because we give you that last column for failure description. So very cool technology. Now, my box is back up and running. And I can guarantee it's not done installing yet, because Windows 2000 ain't that fast, especially in my virtual laptop here. Well, physical laptop with virtual technology. And CCM setup should be back up and running now. There we go. So we picked up where we left off. It's going to go ahead and continue on with this installation, and it's going to go ahead and remove CCM setup, and CCM exec will be running when it's all done. So we'll leave this guy running. We'll see if we have another state message yet. But you'll see state messages pop in here. I want to say that Windows says they're like 2 or 3K in size. So not huge by any means, just that we get somewhere between 6 and 8 per client. So you can see a big backlog of these depending on how many clients you're deploying at a time. Alrighty. So, and we'll come back later on. We'll see that guy's moved to the success report. All right, so next deployment method, the rest of the client push is the same. So software update client deployment. This one helps us get by all those firewall issues and low rights user issues because it's using Windows Update Agent. Windows Update Agent is going to do the installation of our client for us. So what we do is we publish our client as a mandatory application update into WSUS that's automatically approved. Client scan, as they normally would. They find this update. It's not installed. They're not compliant with it. They kick off, and what it kicks off is CCM setup. CCM setup then goes to our MP, finds the binaries, downloads the binaries, does the installation, then does that client assignment and client registration, and then the approval process if appropriate. So no firewall issues because it's using Windows Update Agent, which is already through the firewall. No issues with low rights users. I can be a low rights user, and this will work fine because it's running under the context of local system, which is where the Windows Update Agent runs. So what you have to do is you have to have a software update point in your site, and you have to have a policy that tells clients what the software update point is, or the WSUS box. So in my case, I don't have that, so we're going to go ahead and do that momentarily here. So all you do is you enable the software update point client installation method. That requires that you have a software update point in your site configured appropriately. We publish the update, and then we're off and running. So very, very simple. So let's go back over to our site server. And first thing we need to do is make sure that we have a software update point installed in our site. So go look at my site. Oh, let's go back to the full screen mode so you can see better. And I do have a software update. I do not have a software update point installed on my site. So it's going to be really hard to do this. So let's show you how to install a software update point. I thought I did that earlier, and obviously I goofed. My apologies. So a software update point. I should have noticed that when I was picking the FSP, that I didn't have this up there. I should have already had him installed, so he would have been done, because it takes him a moment or two. Come on. There we go. Alrighty. I don't need to use a proxy server, so I'll leave that blank. I do want this to be the active software update point. The active software update point is the one clients scan against, the one they use, kind of like a default management point. Clients won't use the MP that's not the default in their site. Now here's the question you asked earlier about synchronization. The default is to synchronize with Microsoft Update. That means that my WSUS box has an internet connection and can get to Microsoft Update for catalog downloads. It does a delta download of the catalog, so it's not going to update download the entire catalog all the time. And it also only downloads what you tell it to. Second choice is I'm a child site server. So I'm a child site in a hierarchy, so this is going to be set for you automatically as use an upstream server, which would be your parent site's WSUS box. The third option is the one I'm going to take, or the one the gentleman was mentioning, was I don't have internet access for my WSUS box. I'm in a disconnected environment. So in that environment, I'm not synchronizing automatically. Instead, I'm going to use a utility from WSUS. Why does it not want to find program files? My tab is not working. Okay. But, oh, didn't like the little dealie after the end. And I better have WSUS installed here.
Yeah, update services.
There it is. Okay, it's update services. Yep. So what you would use here is WSUS util /export, and then give it a file name. This would dump your catalog from a WSUS box that is on the internet, that has synchronized with Microsoft Update, would dump it to a file. You would then take this file over to your disconnected WSUS box, that's your SUP, and you would just change this to WSUS import. And that would import that catalog metadata from this disconnected environment into your local WSUS box. Oops. So that's what you would do to get this. So I'm going to use this option. We're not doing any software updates here, which doesn't matter, but I've already input some updates in my WSUS box. I don't need to synchronize on the schedule. It's how often do you want this box to go and synchronize with its parent or upstream, or with its whatever its sync source is. I'm just going to do manual. If you're synchronizing with Microsoft Update, you can specify what classifications of products you want to sync in your catalog. The default is just security updates, and service packs. If you're synchronizing, you can then specify what products you want. Now, I'm not synchronizing, but if I go back here and change my sync source momentarily to show you that, then I can go ahead and change my classifications, like critical updates, and now I can expand my products, and I can select what products I want if you are synchronizing with the real source. Now, again, I'm not, so I can't set those.
How often would you recommend to synchronize with source?
I have people that do it on a daily basis because, again, it's the delta. So all it is an API call from us to WSUS, say, hey, go check your source, and it has a delta sync on it.
So does it send anything out to the client since you're still on the server?
Right, nothing goes to the client. And it's the default is, you saw the sync schedule was weekly. So every 7 days what the default is. Now, technically, you wouldn't have to until, patch Wednesday for you guys. I assume it comes on Wednesday for you guys since it's Tuesday on us. And not to offend anybody, but I'm going to remove all the languages other than English. That's all I speak and barely speak it well. So I'll remove those, the definition I want to update. And then this will go ahead and create my software update point. I was supposed to do that in the previous presentation, but I forgot. So that will go ahead and create it as a software update point. Now, once you have a software update point installed, then to enable the WSUS installation method, all you have to do is go here and go to this option and just click the checkbox. Enable it. It says, hey, you've got a newer version of your SUP client than I have published in the database, which makes sense because we haven't published anything here. So if you're at RTM and you're going to SP1, you have to redo this option. It doesn't update automatically for you. So just go in here and says, hey, I got a new version. You say, yes, I want to update. And then it will go ahead and publish this to your WSUS box. It takes it a couple minutes to do its publishing. So it's not going to be an instantaneous process. So no state messages there. So let's go see what our client status is. He's all installed. So let's go look here real quick. Let's look at that failure report again. And client deployment failure report right here. Just click on it, and it's blank. So there's no records now in the failure report. Now, if I go to the client deployment status details, it should have moved one from from failure to success. So it's now 100% success instead of 100% failure. All righty. So the box I'm going to install is on my member server, and I don't have a GP set up for this. So I'm just going to go ahead and manually enter it to tell it to use WSUS. So administrative tools, Windows components, and Windows Update. And I'm just going to go ahead and say specify Microsoft Update internet location. And it's HTTP, and then my URL is SMS server. Alrighty, so it's enabled and configured properly. Now I just do a GP update /force. And while it's doing that, before I tell it to scan, let's see if it has done its publishing. If you like status messages, and I like status messages, I just don't think they're as verbose as log files, but I'll show you the status message route, or route as you would say here, I assume. Go to component status. And this is one of those tricky things. So look how big my scroll bar is. I'm going to scroll all the way down to this scroll bar, and it looks like you're at the bottom. However, if I click my scroll bar again, oh, it went down for me. Usually it just it shrinks, and I have to scroll down to the bottom. And I want WSUS Control Manager, and I want to do show messages for it. And I think it's 6615, if I remember correctly. So it's not there yet. So it is up and running. So I think it's a 6615 status message we'll get when we publish this update to WSUS. So until then, didn't do any good to try and deploy our client. So while we're waiting a moment for that, let's just cheat and go and verify that my SMS client is in. For a group policy, I was going to do a separate OU, so make sure I have it's in the appropriate OU, and it is. Come on. It's really exciting watching this. WCM 918 is right now. Yeah, now it's there. So now I go back to my status message and press F5 and wow. Well, maybe there's a backlog of status messages too to be processed. But here's the line I'm looking for. Successfully published, oops, one above that. Successfully published and approved package A33, it's always the same GUID for SP1, for install. So that's publishing our client into into WSUS. So it is in WSUS. So now I'll give him one more chance. Don't know why he's not doing the status message, but we'll go over to this guy. And now next time he scans with WSUS, it's going to go and find that update and should install automatically. So I'm just going to go ahead and force it to scan instead of going and waiting. Oops. Detect now. And if everything's working correctly, Windows Update Agent should be kicking in doing its work. And then any second now, we should have Windows Update Agent should be kicking in, it's doing its work. I'm not seeing Windows Update Agent. There we go, Windows Update Agent, and there's CCM Setup. So CCM Setup is running from Windows Update Agent. And again, you don't have to manually set this parameter. You do it through group policy, and you don't have to manually force it to scan. It would happen automatically as part of its scanning process. I just forced it so we didn't have to wait. So the client will go ahead and do its installation, kicking off CCM Setup. No command line parameters, so it goes to AD and finds those command line parameters. And we'll read it from there. And then it will go ahead and create, oh, there's a state message. So there's an FSP state message sitting there. And that'll get processed within the next 2 minutes, and we'll be happy. All right, so we'll come back and let him see what he looks like in a little bit. Group policy. So this is a true Active Directory group policy deployment method where we had some limited kind of, it worked maybe sometimes in SMS 2003, not the best thing. So this is much better. We use a different utility, ccmsetup.msi, as opposed to you using client.msi. In fact, in Configuration Manager, you cannot run client.msi to install a client like you could in SMS 2003. You try it, we error out and tell you it's not a valid installation method. And it can only be called by our other setup utilities. So it's either ccmsetup.msi or CCM Setup itself. It'll reads the deployment settings from Active Directory. So you go ahead and create a group policy that goes in and runs that utility, and it'll go ahead and read your parameters from Active Directory. There also are ADM templates, which I'll show you if you haven't extended the schema, so that you can't find the parameters in AD, but you still are AD based, so you can go ahead and deploy. You just still schema is either SMS 2003 or not extended at all. You can have ADM templates, so you can specify command line parameters as you need to. So no more auto removal of clients because of the fact that you remove the group policy object. So let me show you what that looks like. Go back over to our site server. And first thing we need to do is to create just to make it simple, I'm going to create a folder that we'll use for our installation source. So new folder, GP install. What you need to copy in GP install is from your source files, CCM setup.msi. Not CCM exe, but CCM setup.msi. You copy that to your installation source, or from the installation source to your folder. For group policy, we'll share this. And we'll just say share it. We'll leave the same share name and default parameters. As far as security goes, fine. Let's just look. Well, no status messages. Status is busted in SP1. Joking. Yeah. And now you know why I use log files. We want to create a new group policy. So I'm just going to go the cheap way, the group policy, and we'll do a new, and we'll call it SCCM client install. And we'll edit this guy. We don't have any software installation packages right now, so we'll go and create a new one. And we'll path to SMS server GP install. Where's my type? Oh, sever. There you go. Good job. So I was thinking it should have found this for me automatically. GP install. And then it should show me my CCM setup.msi, but
See, it's not just config manager, it doesn't have a browser mode.
oh, there you go. Okay. I can select, but yes. Oh, I still misspelled it, didn't I? You told me that, and I.
Corrected it, and you uncorrected it.
How did I uncorrect it? I thought I typed it. Okay. You guys have seen all sorts of new things today. Something I'm sure your users would never do. So you don't have these type of user problems.
If you've installed client hotfixes, would you not take the package source as your client folder rather than the...
No, you would not. If you want to install hotfixes, configuration manager hotfixes, what you do is you go to your oops. Yeah. Where? Come on. Here's where I am. And then you go here and you create in your SMS client folder, you go ahead and create a patch folder, and you put our hotfixes there and we install them automatically.
Yeah, but would you not use the MSI from the client folder? This client MSI file on the...
No, because client at MSI is, no, you don't do client MSI. You can't install that way. You have to use CCM setup.msi or CCM setup. That will then go call the rest of the code from the management point. So we'll get everything from the management point. But no, you don't install with client at MSI. So this guy came.
A reference in the log during installation saying checking to see if that
Yeah,
folder
the
doesn't-
patch folder. And it always says is not available, so people look at that and say, oh, my install didn't work right because it says it couldn't find a folder, and just because you haven't put any in there. So that's all you have to do to make it an assignment. And then you go to your client, and this will be my Windows XP client, obviously. And I'll tell it to do a group policy update. And this is going to be one that's going to require it to reboot. So it's going to say, hey, I got group policies that require a reboot. You want to reboot? And you say yes. And then we'll let him reboot. When I log back on, it'll go ahead and say CCM setup is running. So my member server got installed as a client based off a software update point install. And so that means our report, we go over to our, oh, I guess I can close this guy out. Our report for client. And then the other report you want is the client deployment success report. You run that one, that shows you the individual computer names. So if you want to see the individual computers that were successfully installed. So we must have a state message sitting out there for the SMS member computer that hasn't been processed yet. So you have the summary report, which gives you just the bare numbers, the base numbers. Then you have the failure report, gives you the failure computers, and the success report that lists the successful computers here. So this guy should have let's go see if I got a state message sitting out in my state message folder. Oops. Oh, yeah, I got a state message there, so I just need to wait. They've been there for a minute or so. So when they go away here momentarily, then we'll be... And one caveat here you guys need to be aware of is this. If you install clients through software update point installation, they are going to reboot automatically if we have to install bits. So if we're installing bits 2.0 or bits 2.5, it's going to be reinstalling or rebooting your computers because of the fact that Windows Update did the installation of the client, and it sees the flag that bits 2.0, or in this case 2.5, needs a reboot. So it's causing the restart, not us. You can't suppress it. The only way to get around this is to pre-deploy bits on your client computers. So if you pre-deploy bits, then we don't have to, and so no reboots are involved. There you can see Bootstrap's running right now from group policy, installing software SMS client setup Bootstrap program. So it's installing him automatically. That's one thing I like about XP versus Vista. When I do this on Vista, you don't see that. It's all hidden. So it just takes a little bit longer on the please wait, but it didn't tell you what it's doing. Where here it shows you what it's doing. So we'll let him go and do his work. Oops, let me go back and see if my state messages, yeah, just a brand new one just got in there. So let's go refresh this report now. We should have 2 clients. There we go. So 2 successes. So this is a lot easier to find out what was successful and failures than what you have to do today with SMS 2003. So need an FSP in your site, and you have to tell the clients to use the FSP. Otherwise, nothing happens. Okay, so now you may be in an environment where you have Active Directory, your scheme is not extended, and you want to deploy clients. And you might want to use this group policy thing that I just did, but you can't specify command line parameters with the group policy. And you can't pull those parameters from Active Directory because your scheme is not extended for Configuration Manager. So what we've done for you is given you 2 ADM templates that come with the product that will give you parameters for installation or to assign clients not based on your boundaries, but assign clients to sites based off your business model as opposed to your boundaries themselves. Because you don't have to be within the boundaries of a client of a site to be assigned to that site. If you do an automatic discovery, yes, but otherwise you don't have to be. Oh, and one other thing on the software update point install, it's only applicable for systems that are assigned to within your site boundaries. Because when CCM setup kicks off, it checks if you might assign the site, and if it says no, you're not, you're within the boundaries, then it won't deploy. So what we have here for you in that scenario is to go to your source folder, which in my case is sitting way up here. Come on. Oh, I guess I just copied and over. I don't have the whole source folder here. Here's the 2 ADM templates we have. One for installation, one for assignment. So you would go and create group policy for either one of these 2 guys. I'll just use the same client, and we'll just import these ADM templates for you. So you might say assignment, and if I wanted to reassign my client, not based off of boundaries or the SMS site code equals whatever, I would go ahead and administrative templates, add, remove, and then I want to add. I'll go ahead and import both of them, and obviously you wouldn't for the one scenario I'm doing right now, but so I'll add them both in, show you what they do. Then I go to Configuration Manager. Oops, I got to turn off filtering. There we go. So for site assignment, this allows you to specify when you enable it, here's the assigned site code I want this client to be a member of. So anybody in this group policy is to be assigned to this site. If they're already assigned, we reassign them. If they're not assigned, we see this at installation time, we would go ahead and assign them to the site at installation time. And you got some parameters on there for retries, so if it fails or whatever, it'll go ahead and do retries. So I could put in ABC. Now ABC's got to be a valid v4 site, otherwise it's not going to accept it. And the other one is for installation. So I'm installing clients through group policy. However, I can't read parameters from AD. So here's where I go ahead and specify my CCM setup parameters. So SMS site code equals ABC, FSP equals SMS server, whatever it is. I go and specify those. And we'll read those from here now. So that helps you out in the environment where you don't have the ability of getting everything through Active Directory, through our publishing process.
So the templates are only for when you don't have AD enabled in publishing?
No, you have, we don't have our site publishing to Active Directory, yes. Yeah.
That's the only time you use the AD.
Or it could be for if I'm clients in a different forest, so they can't read the Active Directory for the site. Yeah. But if all the clients are in your sites forest, then right, you would need those templates. Correct. Alrighty. So look and see. I doubt I didn't think the XP client would be done yet, but okay. Then lastly is client upgrades. So it's been almost 2:15 already, or an hour and 15 minutes. So client upgrades. The most common method people use to upgrade their clients is through software distribution, because you get a control when the upgrade happens. It's not like the client push installation wizard where you're controlling it there, but I have to be there to kick it off. Or the automated client push process where it happens whenever I get assigned to the site, but that doesn't do upgrades. So it's very much used, very popular way of upgrading your clients. You use advertisements, target them to happen at 10 p.m. at night or whatever the case is. You can also use manual install, automated push if you clear the install flag of your clients, then automated push should work, as well as software update point. You can use the software update point install as well, because it's a new GUID between RTM and SP1. So they'd see the SP1 client as a mandatory application update that they're not compliant with, and it would go ahead and kick off the upgrade from it. So Service Pack 1, there is a new client for Service Pack 1. So if you're running the RTM version of Configuration Manager, there is a new client. So you need to upgrade your site server, site systems, which will happen automatically, as well as the clients. RTM clients can be assigned to an SP1 site. Not a problem. You cannot pre-upgrade your clients before the site. So SP1 clients are not supported in an RTM site. So you have to upgrade the site first, and then you upgrade your clients as you get around to it. There is no new client with R2. So once you've got SP1, that's as far as your client goes. Same thing with your site server. There's no new version of site server for R2. You upgrade to SP2, then you add in or install R2 when you need those features set. But it's still an SP1 client. All the code work was done in SP1. Yeah.
Restriction about the RTM SP1 on that? Because in SMS 2003, you always guaranteed you could upgrade the clients or the site, whichever you wanted.
That is a change. So yes, in SMS 2003, you could upgrade clients before the site got upgraded. Yes, we did support that. We no longer support that as of SP1. Correct. So good point. That is a change. Okay, if you want to upgrade clients through software distribution, pretty simple. You guys probably all done this as more than I have. Yeah, maybe not. I demo more than you upgrade sites, so maybe I've got you beat, but it's nothing that's really unique here. I just want to point out something on this for SMS 2003, people that aren't in Configuration Manager yet that are still in SMS 2003. So when you create your new package from definition, we have that package definition file built in. It's the bottom one in our list, which is Configuration Manager Client Upgrade. Your package should contain source files. Source files can be local drive. What changes here is in that in SMS 2003, your source location used to be C:SMS, and you go to client i386, you go all the way down to the platform directory. You can't do that with Configuration Manager. You need to go to the client folder. So your source is Program Files, Microsoft Configuration Manager, i386, or just client instead of i386. We share binaries between all the different platforms, so you have to take all the platforms, unfortunately. So your package is a little bit bigger than it really needs to be. So that's your source. And we'll let that create, and then I'll show you one more thing real quick in the package that gets created and the program, then we'll finish up this presentation, take another break. So it creates a program. That program is Advanced Client Silent Install, which I'm sure we're leaving it Advanced Client because of the fact that it's upgrading from SMS 2003. They were Advanced Clients. However, I don't have Advanced Clients on my side. I only have Configuration Manager clients. But doesn't matter. We give you a great big important here in the comment. This is important. You guys need to go in there and figure out what the command line parameters are appropriate for your environment. In the past, it used to be CCM setup, and then SMS site code equals auto, which it still is SMS site code equals auto. What we've done here is we've added the no service switch in there, which used to be run user only. In SMS 2003, it was called user only, so we changed it to no service because people were confused on what user only meant. So this says don't reinstall as a service. So don't change your context from the logged on users running this to the local service account, because the computer account across the wire may not have rights to access the source files on the distribution point. So that's the change here. Now, personally, I would change this. I would not leave SMS site code equals auto. Because, again, think about that scenario where I'm sitting here in Reading and I'm assigned to Redmond. If they send out this advertisement to me and I happen to run this advertised program, I would get reassigned to the Reading site instead of my site in Redmond. So I would change this to MCM in my case. And then if you want to use an FSP, so I would change this to say MCM, and then my FSP equals SMS server. A whole bunch of typos, aren't there? That's what happens when you put your fingers in the wrong spot. Good thing I got you guys trained. Thank you. Not that I'm going to use this anyway, because I don't have any clients to upgrade. Because I've got 3 clients, 1 pushed, 1 software update point installed, and 1 group policy installed. So I got nothing left to upgrade to. I guess I could run on one of my existing clients, but it's a waste of time. And network traffic. But change this the way you want it is a key thing to be aware of. And we do expose the comment there, and we do have the big important there in front, so hopefully you see that. Let's just go look at our client deployment success report and see if my XP client, yep, there it is. He's reported in already. So he has reported in, so all 3 of my clients are reported in. So if I go ahead and look at that one, I'm 100% success. Let's see you guys match that. I'll take my odds, and I'll bet against you.
My status messages work.
There you go. Your status messages work. Well, I don't use status messages, so I don't care. I use log files. No, I do care. I'll look at this. But so some tips on client deployment. Consider pre-deploying some of those files, specifically bits. If you don't want to have to worry about reboots on either the software update point installs or Windows 2000 client installs, pre-deploy bits. That way it gives you plenty of time to get bits installed and then a reboot to happen before you install them as clients. Notice my other clients didn't require a reboot. Well, I guess they all 3 of them required reboots. Windows 2000 because of bits 2.0. The software update point 1 did not because of our bits installed, but because Windows Update Agent saw the bits flag. And then the group policy guy did because of group policy. But we actually suppress through our code, we suppress the restart of a client if you have to install bits 2.5. If you're in mixed mode. In native mode, if you install bits 2.5 as part of our setup, you're forced to do a reboot. So consider pre-deploying bits to get that taken care of. Highly recommended to ensure that Active Directory scheme has been enabled or updated. That will get you your need to not have to have a server locator point. And the ability then to get your parameters, command line parameters from AD as opposed to worry about the command line parameters. Hopefully you saw the benefit of a fallback status point. Plus the fact that you'll see, and we haven't installed long enough, but on a daily basis you'll see each client send a FSP state message saying, I think it's called CCM Framework Infrastructure, 1000 or 1001, I forget which one it is. I think it's 1000 is a success. I was able to talk to the MP. And we'll do that on a daily basis, just so then you can run reports to see what clients aren't able to talk to their MP on a daily basis. So highly recommended. You don't have to have one per site. You have one per location you want to do reporting from. So if you want to do all the client deployment status reporting from central site, you can just have an FSP at your central site. Then your child sites, don't install an FSP, just give it the FSP equals whatever your computer name is your FSP at the central site. That's fine. Deploy clients in a phased manner. We had one TAP customer that tried to deploy 20,000 clients in a night. It did not go very well. So highly recommended you don't do that. Our recommendation is a few thousand a day. We can't give you any more strict than that or any more precise. In your environment, with your networking, your infrastructure, you may be able to handle 5,000 to 6,000 a day. You may have a slow enough links and boundaries and procedures and everything else. You might only want to have 100 a day. I can't tell you that, but try not to get too many thousands going on at a time. Remember, 6 to 8 state messages per client. And then if I had turned on software update point installation and so on, client's going to do software update scanning, which I actually have a software update point now. I haven't synchronized the catalog, so nobody's doing any scanning, but as soon as I sync my catalog, they would kick off and do their scans. So that will generate traffic as well. For initial deployments, we recommend a really small pilot. Validate all your functionality. So install your first site, install a handful of clients, validate that clients are accessing the MP. Validate you're getting inventory data back. Validate you can do software distribution. It's a great way of doing client health status is through a quick little software distribution test. Pop up Notepad or run some little test thing or ping or something like that. just to get it back a status report that says, hey, everything was successful. So clients are talking to MPs, clients are talking to DPs, status is working, not in mine, but hey, you guys may have better luck. You might want to consider for brand new installations actually dropping your heartbeat discovery and inventory schedules down to daily. That way, again, just to exercise the system, see if you encounter any issues, and just make sure all your clients are talking properly. And then once you validate everything, go ahead and bump things back up to the normal weekly or whatever schedule you want.
Wally, you forgot the most important one. Use Ops Manager to manage your CCM infrastructure.
Sure. Go ahead and use Mom 2000 to, no. Don't use Mom 2000. Yes, we do have some pretty decent integration between the two different products. They have a management pack to monitor our facilities, and obviously you can create rules to go ahead and look at event logs and so on to look for issues. And we have maintenance mode in our code to go ahead and turn off Mom alerting when services get shut down or whatever when you're doing software updates and so on. So, good point there, Gordon. First time I've ever said Mom or Operations Manager in any of my presentations. So, no, it's really not. Really not. Okay. Boy, am I talking long. It's already 4:44, and we're supposed to be done here at 6, and I'm supposed to be done with my next presentation in 45 minutes. Ain't going to happen. So anyway, okay, let's go ahead and take a break. So let's come back. Let's try 16:55. So I'll give you a 11-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll talk as much as we can SP1 and R2 before you guys need to take off. I'm not going anywhere till Sunday, so I got time.
Just a little thing.